Everyone thinks being home alone is relaxing. No parents, no roommates, no interruptions, just peace and quiet. But for some people, the silence doesn't bring comfort, it brings something else, something darker. Because when the house is still and the world outside is asleep, you notice things you'd never notice otherwise. A knock where there shouldn't be one, a whisper through the glass, footsteps in a place that should be empty. These aren't just scary stories. They're true accounts from people who were home alone and lived to tell what happened. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones. And if you enjoy these stories, don't forget to subscribe and let me know in the comments if you've ever had something strange happen while home alone. Here are 3 very scary, true Home Alone horror stories. I was 17 the first time I ever spent a whole weekend home alone. It was summer, right after junior year, and my parents had to drive a few hours out of town for a wedding. They asked if I wanted to come, but I had just gotten my driver's license and wanted the freedom of the house to myself. No curfew, no chores, no siblings fighting over the TV. Just me and a quiet house. Friday started off great. I invited a couple friends over after school. We ordered pizza, played video games in the living room, and just hung out until around 10. Once everyone left, I settled in for what I thought was going to be the best lazy weekend ever. I made popcorn, queued up Netflix, and ended up falling asleep on the couch sometime past midnight. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up. At first, I thought it was because I was uncomfortable. My neck was sore from the way I'd been laying. But then, I heard it. A sound. It was faint, but distinct. A slow, deliberate scrape, like metal dragging against glass. I froze, staring at the big living room window behind me. My brain scrambled for explanations. Maybe it was the wind, maybe an animal, maybe just my imagination. But we didn't have any trees close enough to brush against the windows, and the sound was too steady, too controlled. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. But eventually, I sat up and peeked through the blinds. The yard looked empty, just the dim glow of the streetlight on the lawn. I sat there for a long time, holding my breath, waiting. Eventually, I convinced myself it was nothing and went back to sleep. The next night, though, it happened again. I was watching TV, half dozing on the couch, when the sound returned. The scrape. Long, slow, deliberate. This time, I muted the TV and just listened. My heart pounded in my ears, and I realized I was gripping the blanket so hard my knuckles hurt. Then came something worse. A whisper. Not loud, not clear, just a faint murmur outside the window. I couldn't make out words, but I knew without a doubt that it was a voice. I jumped up, grabbed my phone, and called the only person I thought could help. My neighbor across the street, Mr. Harris. He was retired, an ex-cop, and the kind of guy who always told me, if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to knock. He came over within minutes, flashlight in hand. Together, we checked around the house. The yard was empty. The windows were unbroken. No footprints in the grass. He told me it was probably kids playing a prank and reminded me to lock the doors. His calm voice helped, but when I laid back down that night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Around 3 a.m., I woke again, not from a sound, but from the lack of one. The house was silent, too silent. I shifted under the blanket, and that's when I noticed it. On the window above the couch, inches from where my head had been resting, was a smudge, a handprint pressed against the glass from the outside. The fingers were long and smeared, like whoever it was had been leaning close, watching me sleep. This happened when I was in college. I was 21, living in a cheap off-campus apartment with 2 roommates. The place wasn't in the best part of town, but rent was low, and it was close to campus. One weekend, both of my roommates went home to visit family, leaving me alone in the apartment for the first time. I figured it would be a nice break. No noise, no fighting over dishes, just peace and quiet. Friday night, I stayed up late working on a paper. Around 1:30 in the morning, I finally shut my laptop and got ready for bed. I had just started drifting off when I heard it. A knock at the door. 3 knocks. Slow, steady. My eyes snapped open. I froze in bed, heart pounding. Nobody I knew would show up at 2 in the morning. At first, I thought maybe I imagined it. But then, it came again. 3 more knocks. I forced myself out of bed and crept into the living room. The knocking stopped as I approached the door, but I could feel someone on the other side. I slowly leaned toward the peephole. What I saw made my stomach twist. A man was standing there, perfectly still, not swaying, not shifting, just standing like a statue. His head was tilted downward, so I couldn't see his face. I didn't breathe, didn't move, just watched. Then, after what felt like forever, his hand lifted and he knocked again. 3 slow knocks. I backed away from the door as quietly as I could. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, ready to call 911. But before I could dial, I froze again. Another knock, this time from the back door. I felt my entire body go cold. There was no way he could have moved that fast, unless there were 2 of them. I ran straight to my bedroom, locked the door, and whispered into the phone as I called the police. They told me to stay put until officers arrived. Every second felt like an hour. I sat there in silence, straining to hear footsteps, breathing, anything. When the police finally knocked and announced themselves, I nearly cried. But when we checked the doors, the man was gone. Both doors were locked, nothing broken. The only sign that anyone had been there was on the back door window, a smudge, right in the middle of the glass, like someone had pressed their forehead against it, watching. This happened a few years ago, after my family moved into a new house. It was a 2-story place with an unfinished basement, and I hated going down there. The concrete floors, the exposed pipes, the shadows in the corners, it always felt wrong. One night, my parents went out to dinner, leaving me alone for a few hours. I stayed in my room scrolling on my phone until I heard a noise downstairs. A soft thud. At first, I brushed it off as the house settling, but then came another sound, a dragging noise, something heavy scraping across the floor. I froze, then forced myself to investigate. The basement door groaned as I pushed it open, and the air felt damp and heavy as I flicked the light on. The single bulb lit only half the basement, leaving the other half in shadow. That's when I noticed it. The crawl space door. It was small, set into the wall near the foundation. Normally it stayed shut, but now it was open, just slightly. I crept closer, heart hammering, and that's when I saw the marks, scratches, fresh ones, along the wood of the doorframe. Long, thin grooves like fingernails had been clawing at it from the inside. I bolted upstairs, slammed my bedroom door, and locked it. For hours, I sat there in silence, listening for more sounds. At some point, exhaustion must have taken over, because I woke to sunlight streaming through my window. I crept downstairs again, dreading what I might find. The crawl space door was shut, perfectly closed, like it had never been touched. But then I saw the floor. In the thin layer of dust near the stairs were footprints, bare human footprints. They led from the crawl space out into the middle of the basement, and then stopped, like whoever it was had stood there, watching. Being home alone feels harmless, until you realize how fragile that safety really is. A scrape at the window, a knock in the night, a door left open that you swear was closed. Little signs that remind us you're never as alone as you think. So the next time you find yourself in an empty house, pay attention, listen closely, because silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's waiting. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Be sure to like the video, subscribe for more true scary stories every week, and share your own experiences in the comments below. You never know, your story might end up in a future video.